People frequently confuse the terms immigrant and Muslim. When they're talking about immigrants, they often talk about Muslims, and when they're talking about the Arabic and Muslim populations that are migrating, they just call them immigrants, and they get the whole area. Run, Froggy, run. Anyways, and it's interesting because it should technically make you want to take an interest in these regions of the world, regions that have been just devastated by war for like over a decade. Because when two guys stole a plane and crashed into a building, a nation took that as an excuse to attack multiple countries based on religion and ethnicity and nationality, and they purged. So when these nations, they don't know why they're being attacked by the United States, but the United States is coming in. And they've already been there for 80 years taking oil. When they raise up an army to fight against these intruders, these insurgents, the Americans just purged their entire national army. They just never left. And no one even knew why they were there, and they just stayed and killed people relentlessly and toppled governments, and it was just a complete shit show. So you think you'd take the time to take enough interest in what was going on here that you would have read into the history a little bit, and you would be reading into how the kings and the princes of these nations ended up being the ones taking the money from the European governments that were taking oil from them. Now, Russia wasn't there for a long time. Russia actually wasn't there for a really, really long time regarding any of these nations, but there were European people buying oil off of these princes and buying all different kinds of things off these princes. And how do you get that when the Muslims don't want to trade with Christians, and the Muslims don't want to trade with atheists, and the Muslims don't want to trade with pagans? And yet, these princes and these kings are omnipotent forces in the middle of these deserts with guns and riches and cars and planes and all this technology, and they're these uncontestable Ottomans. Now, how does that make sense? Where does that come from? Who gave them all that power? Because they didn't provide it for themselves. That was instated by corporations and monarchs and aristocrats that were getting their little grubby fingers into the Arabic countries. But is that what incited war? No. What incited war was two guys stole a plane and crashed it into a stock investor tower. A redundant task, by the way. Now, do you think that's a reason why Muslims would be creeping out of a country that they had never crept out of before to come and attack us? No. Not even when the Indian country dejected large sums of Muslims because the Muslims were a minority population. That hasn't invoked any retaliation against India. The Muslims didn't go back there fighting. The Muslims haven't been fighting wars in Yugoslavia. They're not attacking Russia. They're not attacking Africa. The only people attacking Africa are criminal cartels. So look a little deeper into how these princes with tons of wives and tons of money aren't Muslim in any way, shape, or form, and that's why we have so many different versions of Islam. And who gave them that power? And what actually took place in this war? And how did the war actually happen? And who was involved? When you actually look into all that stuff, you start listening to all the stupid idiots. They're migrants, Muslims. You wonder, who the fuck are you?